The courtroom was silent except for the sound of pens scratching paper. Marcus Thompson signed the divorce papers with a flourish, his signature bold and confident across the bottom of the page. He looked up at me with that smile, the one I used to think was charming. Now I could see it for what it truly was. Cold, calculating, cruel. He leaned across the table, close enough that only I could hear his whisper. "Enjoy being poor, Claire." From the back row I heard her giggle. Vanessa, the woman who had been sleeping in my bed, wearing my robe, drinking wine from my glasses. She sat there like she'd already won, like she was attending a celebration rather than the destruction of an 8-year marriage. Marcus's lawyer stacked the papers neatly, ready to hand them to the judge. This was it, the final moment, the end of everything I'd built with a man I thought I knew. Judge Patricia Morrison took the documents, her reading glasses perched on her nose. She began reviewing them with the thorough attention she gave every case. Then she paused. Her hand reached for another envelope on her desk. A sealed envelope with my name written across the front in familiar handwriting. "Before we finalize these proceedings," she said, her voice cutting through Marcus's premature victory, "there's the matter of Mrs. Thompson's father's will." Marcus's face froze mid-smirk. I watched the color drain from his cheeks as the judge's fingers worked at the seal. But to understand how we got to this moment, how I went from broken to powerful, from victim to victor, we need to go back. Back to the day my world shattered into a million pieces. 6 months earlier, I pulled into my driveway 3 hours earlier than expected. My father had fallen asleep at the hospice, exhausted from another round of treatments that we both knew weren't working anymore. The nurse had insisted I go home, get some rest, take care of myself. I'd been spending nearly every night at his bedside for the past 3 weeks. I was tired, bone tired, the kind of exhaustion that comes from watching someone you love slowly fade away while pretending to be strong for them. My father was all I had left in this world. My mother had died when I was 16. No siblings. No extended family that stayed in touch. Just Dad and me against the world. The house was dark except for a light in our bedroom upstairs. Our bedroom, the one Marcus and I had shared for 8 years. I remember thinking it was strange that he'd left the light on. Marcus was obsessive about electricity bills, always lecturing me about turning off lights I wasn't using, adjusting the thermostat, checking the water heater settings. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe some part of me already knew what I was about to find. But I kept climbing anyway, my hand trailing along the banister we'd picked out together when we first bought this house. The bedroom door was half open. I could hear sounds from inside. Laughter, movement, the intimate sounds of 2 people who thought they were alone. I pushed the door open. There they were, Marcus and Vanessa, his business partner. The woman he told me was just a colleague, when I'd asked why they were having so many late-night meetings. She was wearing my silk robe, the cream-colored one my father had bought me for Christmas 2 years ago, the one that cost more than I'd ever spend on myself, but that my father had insisted on because he said I deserved beautiful things. 2 wine glasses sat on my nightstand. Red wine, the expensive bottle we'd been saving for our anniversary next month. The one we'd bought on our honeymoon in Napa Valley, promising to open it on our 10th anniversary. Marcus saw me first, and here's the thing that still haunts me. He didn't look guilty. He didn't scramble to cover up or stammer out apologies. He just looked at me with this expression of mild annoyance, like I'd interrupted something important, like I'd walked into his meeting without knocking. "Claire," he said calmly, sitting up in my bed, in our bed, "you're home early." Vanessa had the decency to look embarrassed, but only for a moment. She pulled the robe tighter around herself and reached for her wine glass, taking a slow sip like she had all the time in the world, like she belonged there. I stood there, frozen in the doorway. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of working double shifts at the museum to pay for his MBA. 8 years of believing in us, in him, in the future we were supposed to be building together. 8 years of coming home exhausted to cook his favorite meals, of attending his company parties and smiling at his colleagues, of putting my own dreams on hold because his career came first. "You were never enough anyway," Marcus said, his voice flat and matter-of-fact. I need someone who matches my ambition. Someone who understands the business world. Someone who doesn't smell like dusty old paintings and spend her days with dead artists. Those words cut deeper than the betrayal itself. Never enough. After everything I'd sacrificed, everything I'd given up for him, I was never enough. My job at the museum, the work I loved, the art I was passionate about, it was all just a joke to him. Something to mock. Something to be ashamed of. I don't remember leaving the room. I don't remember driving to a hotel or checking in. The next thing I clearly recall is sitting on a generic hotel bed at 2 in the morning, staring at my phone, trying to decide who to call. My father was dying. I couldn't burden him with this. My mother had passed away years ago. I'd lost touch with most of my friends during the marriage, too busy working and supporting Marcus's dreams to maintain my own relationships. I was completely alone. I cried until there were no tears left. Then I just sat there, numb, watching the numbers on the digital clock change. 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., each minute feeling like an hour, each hour feeling like a lifetime. The next morning, Marcus served me divorce papers at breakfast. He'd actually made breakfast. Pancakes, my favorite. He set the plate in front of me with the legal documents folded underneath, like they were just another piece of mail. I've already talked to a lawyer, he said. Pouring himself coffee like this was a normal Tuesday morning. This will be simple and quick. I want the house. It's in both our names, but I need it for business meetings. Important clients. You understand. I didn't respond. Couldn't. My throat felt like it had closed up entirely. I'll also need your car, he continued, buttering his toast. The Lexus makes a better impression than my Honda. Clients notice these things. And I think half your retirement fund is fair, considering I supported you emotionally throughout our marriage. That has value, Claire. Emotional labor. Supported me. The man who I'd put through business school, who I'd worked 60-hour weeks to support while he networked and built his precious career, was claiming he'd supported me. Oh, and I'll need some alimony, he added, sitting down across from me with his coffee. Just until my business stabilizes. Things are tight right now. Maybe $3,000 a month? That's reasonable. You make decent money at that museum. I made $48,000 a year. After taxes, $3,000 a month would leave me with almost nothing. You can keep your clothes and personal items, of course, Marcus said generously, like he was doing me a favor. And maybe some of the furniture from the guest room. I'll need everything else for when Vanessa moves in. She's moving in? I finally found my voice. Already? Marcus shrugged. Why wait? You and I are done, Claire. Have been for a long time if I'm being honest. I just didn't want to hurt you while your dad was sick. But now, he trailed off, taking a bite of pancake. Now we can both move on. Vanessa moved in the next day. She arrived with a moving truck and professional decorators. Within a week, every trace of my existence had been erased from the house I'd helped buy. The photos came down. My books disappeared into boxes that Marcus promised to drop off at my apartment but never did. Even the paint colors changed. The soft blue I'd chosen for the living room became a harsh gray. The warm yellow kitchen became stark white. Marcus posted photos on social media within days. Him and Vanessa laughing in what used to be our kitchen. Them cuddling on what used to be our couch. The caption read, "New chapter, new love, new life. Sometimes you have to let go of what's holding you back to reach your true potential." I was what had been holding him back. Me, the woman who'd worked 60-hour weeks so he could pursue his dreams. The woman who'd put her own master's degree on hold because we couldn't afford both of us in school at once. The woman who'd believed every lie about our future and building something together. The comments on his post were supportive. "You deserve happiness, man. She looks amazing. Upgrade for sure. Living your best life. That's what matters." No one knew the truth. No one knew what he'd done. To them, we'd just grown apart. A sad but common story. My father died 3 weeks later. It was a Tuesday morning, just after sunrise. I was holding his hand when he took his last breath. The hospice nurse gave me time alone with him. I sat there for an hour, crying quietly, telling him I was sorry. Sorry I hadn't been enough. Sorry I'd failed at my marriage. Sorry I couldn't make him proud. I told him about the divorce, about Marcus's betrayal, about how I was going to lose everything. I apologized for being weak, for not seeing the signs earlier, for wasting 8 years of my life on someone who never truly loved me. If only I'd known what my father had planned. If only I'd known that he'd been 3 steps ahead of everyone, protecting me in ways I couldn't even imagine. The funeral was small. My father had been a private man, estranged from most of his family after my mother's death. A handful of his former colleagues from the postal service attended. Some neighbors. The hospice staff who'd cared for him in those final weeks. That was it. A lifetime reduced to 20 people in a cemetery on a gray afternoon. Marcus didn't come. He texted me the morning of the funeral. "Your dad never liked me anyway. No point in being a hypocrite. Besides, Vanessa and I have a business meeting. Important client. You understand." I understood perfectly. He couldn't even pretend to care for one day. Couldn't even show up for appearances. I was already that erased from his life. After the service, as I stood alone by the grave watching the workers prepare to lower the casket, a man approached me. He was in his 60s, Asian, wearing an expensive suit that seemed out of place in the modest cemetery. His shoes alone probably cost more than my entire outfit. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, extending his hand. "I'm David Chun. I was your father's attorney." I shook his hand, confused. I didn't know my father had an attorney. My father had lived simply. Too simply, I'd always thought. His house was small and old. He drove a 15-year-old Toyota Camry. He shopped with coupons and bought generic brands. He'd worked for the Postal Service for 35 years and lived on his pension and Social Security. What would he need an attorney for? "We need to talk," Mr. Chan said, glancing around at the few remaining mourners. "Privately, about your father's will." I almost laughed. My father had been a postal worker. He'd lived in a small, modest house that he'd bought in the 80s. What will could there possibly be? Maybe he'd left me the house and his old car. Maybe a small life insurance policy. "Mr. Chun, I appreciate your time, but there's really no need," I said gently. "My father didn't have much. I'm sure whatever paperwork there is, it's straightforward. You don't need to trouble yourself." Mr. Chen's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Mrs. Thompson, I've been your father's attorney for 30 years. Trust me when I say we need to talk. Tomorrow, my office, 10 a.m. He handed me a business card. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. The kind of card that suggested expensive hourly rates. "And please," he paused, his voice dropping lower, "don't sign anything regarding your divorce until we speak." Something in his tone made me agree. Maybe it was the way he emphasized the word, anything. Maybe it was the intensity in his eyes. Or maybe I was just so lost and alone that I was grasping at any human connection offered. That night, I sat in my small apartment, the place I'd rented after leaving the hotel. It was a studio in a converted warehouse. Everything I owned fit in 3 suitcases and 2 boxes. 8 years of marriage reduced to almost nothing. The landlord had felt sorry for me when I'd shown up with so little, and he'd let me move in without first and last month's rent. Just first month and security deposit. Small mercies. The apartment was cold. The heating barely worked, and I couldn't afford to call someone to fix it. I wrapped myself in the one blanket I'd brought and stared at the wall. Marcus had texted me again during the funeral. I'd seen my phone light up during the eulogy but hadn't checked it until now. "Lawyer says we can finalize everything next week. Don't drag this out, Claire. Let's both move on with dignity." Dignity. He was using the word dignity. Another text came through an hour later. "Also, I'm going to need you to sign off on selling the house. Vanessa and I found a bigger place. Better for entertaining clients. You'll get your half of the equity minus what you owe me for improvements I made. Should be about $15,000. That'll help you get started." I'd put down $40,000 for that house. We'd bought it for $320,000. It was now worth $450,000. After the mortgage, my half of the equity should have been close to $65,000. But Marcus was claiming I owed him for improvements. What improvements? The deck he'd built that was already rotting because he'd used cheap materials? The kitchen remodel that I'd paid for with a bonus from work? I didn't respond. I couldn't even summon the energy to be angry anymore. I arrived at Mr. Chen's office the next morning at exactly 10 a.m. It was in a glass tower downtown, 32nd floor. The kind of building with doormen and marble lobbies. The elevator played soft classical music as it rose smoothly upward. The reception area of his law firm was all dark wood and leather furniture. Expensive art on the walls. A receptionist who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. This wasn't the kind of place that handled wills for retired postal workers. "Mrs. Thompson," the receptionist said warmly, "Mr. Chun is expecting you. Right this way." She led me to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking. I could see the river, the bridges, the sprawl of buildings stretching to the horizon. Mr. Chun entered carrying a plain manila folder. He sat across from me and placed the folder on the table without opening it. "Before we begin," he said, "I need you to understand something about your father. Robert Martinez was not just a postal worker. That was his job, yes, but it wasn't who he was." I must have looked confused because he smiled slightly. "Your father came to me 35 years ago, shortly after your mother passed away. He just received a settlement from her wrongful death lawsuit. $300,000. Not a fortune, but significant. He asked me to help him invest it wisely. I knew about my mother's death. She'd been killed by a drunk driver when I was 16. I hadn't known about any settlement. Dad had never mentioned it." Mr. Chun opened the folder and pulled out the first document. "We started with real estate, small properties at first. Your father was patient, strategic. He never borrowed more than he could afford. Never took unnecessary risks. He studied the market, read books, attended seminars. Over 30 years, that $300,000 became something much more substantial." He slid the first paper across to me. It was a property deed, but not for my father's modest house. This was for a commercial property, a shopping plaza I recognized. Riverside Shopping Center. I'd been there dozens of times. "Your father owned the land under the Riverside Shopping Center," Mr. Chun said. "He bought it in 1995 for $200,000. Current value, $2.3 million. I stared at the document, unable to process what I was reading. The numbers seemed fake, like someone had made a typo. Mr. Chun continued, sliding more papers across the table. Each one was like a bomb going off in my brain. He also owned 6 rental properties across 3 states, a duplex in Ohio, a 4-unit building in Michigan, 2 single-family homes in Pennsylvania, an apartment building in Indiana, and a commercial space in Illinois. Combined monthly income, $40,000. He hired property management companies to handle everything, so he never had to deal with tenants directly. $40,000 every month, while he lived on his postal pension and clipped coupons. He owned stocks in 12 different companies," Mr. Chun continued. "Conservative investments that have grown steadily over 3 decades. Blue chip stocks, dividend producers. Current portfolio value, $8.7 million. My hands were shaking now. I gripped the edge of the table, trying to stay grounded in reality. This couldn't be real. My father, who bought day-old bread and wore the same jacket for 15 years, had $8.7 million in stocks? But his real passion was art, Mr. Chun said, and now his smile was genuine warm. Your father had an extraordinary eye. He collected pieces by unknown artists, ones he believed would eventually be recognized. He never bought for status. He bought what spoke to him, and his instincts were remarkable. He pulled out an inventory list. I scanned the names. Some I didn't recognize, but others made my heart stop. These were artists who were unknown when my father had bought their work but were now celebrated. Pieces that had sold at major auction houses for 6 figures or more. He stored them carefully, climate-controlled, properly insured. Never displayed them, never told anyone. That collection is now valued at approximately $12 million. $12 million. In art. My father, who I'd thought barely appreciated my work at the museum, had been a serious collector. He pulled out a final document. An estate summary. Numbers in neat columns. Assets listed and totaled. Total assets, $34 million. All of it goes to you, his only child and sole beneficiary. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table harder, my knuckles turning white. 34 million. The number was so large it didn't seem real. It was the kind of money people won in lotteries, not the kind of money postal workers had. Why? I whispered, my voice barely audible. Why didn't he tell me? Why did he live like he had nothing? Mr. Chen's expression softened. He left you a letter. Would you like me to read it? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Tears were already forming in my eyes. Mr. Chun pulled out an envelope already opened. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in my father's familiar handwriting. Mr. Chun began to read. My dearest Claire, if you're hearing this, I'm gone, and I hope you can forgive me for keeping secrets. When you married Marcus, I was happy for you. You seemed happy. You smiled more than you had since your mother died. I thought maybe I'd been wrong to worry, but over the years I watched him. I saw how he treated you, how he took your support for granted, how he diminished your accomplishments and elevated his own, how he made you smaller so he could feel bigger. I hired a private investigator 2 years ago. His name is Philip Harris, and David has his contact information. I know about the affairs. Not just Vanessa. There have been others. I know about the financial decisions Marcus has made without your knowledge. I know he took out a second mortgage on your house and didn't tell you. I know he's been embezzling from his business partners. I know who he really is. I didn't tell you because I needed you to see it for yourself. Some lessons can only be learned through experience. Some realizations only come when we're ready for them. If I'd told you, you might have defended him. You might have made excuses. You might have stayed, trying to fix something that was broken from the beginning. I couldn't force you to leave. You had to choose that for yourself. The money is yours, sweetheart. All of it. But there's a condition. You must complete your divorce proceedings without revealing this inheritance. Let Marcus show his true colors completely. Let the court see who he really is based on his actions alone, not influenced by money. Take 30 days to prepare. Work with David. Use the resources I've provided. Build your strategy carefully. Then, and only then, when everything is finalized, the money becomes yours officially. I want you to learn what I learned after your mother died. That real wealth isn't money. It's character. It's integrity. It's knowing who you are when everything is stripped away. When your mother died, I had nothing but that settlement and a teenage daughter to raise. I could have spent that money trying to fill the void she left. Instead, I invested it, grew it, built something that could protect you when I was gone. You are strong, Claire. Stronger than you know. Stronger than Marcus ever let you believe. Prove it to yourself. Prove it to the world. Show that man who tried to break you that you are unbreakable. And when you do, take this gift I'm leaving you and build a life that honors your strength, not someone else's weakness. Use this money wisely, not just for yourself but for others who need help the way you needed it. Be the person I always knew you could be. I love you, I'm proud of you, and I'm sorry I won't be there to see the incredible woman you're about to become. But I'll be watching. I believe in you. Always have. Always will. Dad. By the time Mr. Chun finished reading, I was sobbing. Great, heaving sobs that shook my entire body. My father had known. He'd known everything and had been protecting me in the only way he could. He'd seen through Marcus when I was still blind. He'd prepared for this moment, for my freedom, for my future. Mr. Chun waited patiently, handing me tissues from a box on the conference table. When I finally composed myself enough to breathe, he continued. There's more, he said gently. He pulled out another folder, this one much thicker. Your father instructed me to compile this for you. It's documentation of everything Marcus has done. He opened the folder and I saw photographs. Marcus with different women at hotels, restaurants, in cars. Time-stamped, dated, dozens of them. The affairs, Mr. Chun said. There are 3 other women besides Vanessa. Your father's investigator documented all of them. He pulled out financial documents, bank statements, loan applications, business records. The business debts he's hidden from you, over $400,000. The loan he took against your house without your knowledge or signature, which is fraud. The money he embezzled from his own business partners, approximately $75,000 over 2 years. Each document was another betrayal, another lie uncovered. My father had built an entire case against Marcus, piece by piece, year by year. Your father also wanted you to have these contacts. Mr. Chun handed me 2 business cards. Jessica Wu is a private investigator who specializes in infidelity and financial fraud cases. She worked with Philip Harris on your father's investigation. She's already familiar with your situation and has agreed to help you with anything additional you might need. The second card was elegant, embossed. Amanda Reeves, Esquire. Family Law. Amanda Reeves is the best divorce attorney in the state, Mr. Chun said. Your father retained her services 6 months ago. She's been waiting for your call. Her retainer has already been paid in full. I looked at the cards, then at the folders, then at Mr. Chun. My father had thought of everything, every detail, every possibility. My father planned all of this? He wanted you to have every advantage, Mr. Chun replied. But he also wanted you to choose your own path. You can take this information and fight Marcus in court. Or you can take a settlement and walk away. Or you can do something entirely different. It's entirely up to you. This is your life, your choice. Your father just wanted to make sure you had options. I thought about Marcus's smirk as he handed me the divorce papers. His casual cruelty. The way he'd erased me from the house, from his life, from his social media like I'd never existed. I thought about Vanessa wearing my robe, drinking my wine, sleeping in my bed. I thought about all the women who'd been in my position, betrayed, discarded, left with nothing while their husbands moved on to younger, shinier versions. I want to fight, I said quietly. Not just for me, for justice, for every woman he's used and discarded, for every person he's lied to and stolen from. I want him to face consequences for once in his privileged life. Mr. Chun nodded approvingly. Then let's get to work. The next 30 days were the most transformative of my life. I met with Jessica Wu in her office, a sleek space with computers and filing cabinets full of evidence. She showed me things I could barely stomach. Not just photos of Marcus with other women, but videos. Recordings of phone calls where he bragged to his friends about his conquests. Text messages where he called me pathetic, boring, a dead weight he couldn't wait to shed. He's been planning to leave you for at least 2 years, Jessica said, showing me a timeline she'd created. But he wanted to wait until you had more in your retirement account. He's been tracking your balance, waiting for the right moment to maximize what he could take from you. The cold calculation of it was staggering. He hadn't left me for love or passion. He'd left me for money, and he'd timed it for maximum financial gain. Jessica showed me bank statements revealing Marcus's financial crimes. He'd been funneling money from his business into personal accounts. He'd been charging personal expenses to the business credit card. He'd taken out loans in the company's name and pocketed the cash. His business partner, Tom, has no idea about most of this, Jessica said. He thinks the company is struggling because of market conditions. He doesn't realize Marcus has been stealing from him for years. I met with Amanda Reeves, the divorce attorney, in her office the following week. She was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. She wore a power suit and had a reputation for destroying opposing counsel in court. Your husband is going to try to take everything, she said bluntly during our first meeting. Men like him always do. They believe they're entitled to the fruits of their wives' labor simply because they exist. They believe their careers, their ambitions, their happiness matters more than anyone else's. Can he succeed? I asked, fear creeping into my voice. Can he take my retirement fund? Force me to pay him alimony? Amanda smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who just spotted prey. Not if we do this right. Your father gave us everything we need. We're going to let Marcus think he's winning. We're going to let him make demands, reveal his true character to the judge. And then, when he's completely exposed himself, when he's shown everyone exactly who he is, we're going to destroy him. She laid out the strategy. We would appear weak, compliant, willing to negotiate. We would let Marcus become overconfident, arrogant. We would document every cruel text, every unreasonable demand, every lie he told. And then, in court, we would present all of it at once. The affairs, the fraud, the embezzlement, everything. The will stays sealed until the final hearing, Amanda said, per your father's instructions. We don't reveal the inheritance until the judge asks about it. Let Marcus think you're broke and desperate. Let him show the judge exactly what kind of man he is when he thinks he's kicking someone who's already down. During those 30 days, I played my part perfectly. I stayed in my small apartment with the broken heating. I continued working at the museum, taking the bus because Marcus had claimed my car. I wore the same clothes. I didn't buy anything new or expensive. To anyone watching, I was still Claire Thompson, the sad, abandoned wife trying to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. But inside, I was transforming. Every morning, I looked at myself in the mirror and repeated what my father had written. You are strong. You are unbreakable. You are more than what he made you believe. I wasn't weak Claire anymore. I was my father's daughter. Strategic, patient, waiting for exactly the right moment to strike. Marcus, meanwhile, grew more confident and more cruel every day. He sent me texts demanding I agree to his settlement terms. Stop being difficult, Claire. You have nothing. I have everything. Just accept reality and move on with some dignity. He posted more photos with Vanessa. Expensive dinners at restaurants I'd always wanted to try but couldn't afford. Weekend trips to places we talked about visiting but never did. A new BMW, bright red, with a bow on it. Surprise for my baby, the caption read. She deserves the best. All of it paid for with money he didn't have, borrowed against a future he assumed was certain. Jessica Wu provided regular updates. He's contacted 2 more ex-girlfriends, testing the waters. Vanessa is getting suspicious. She's been checking his phone, looking through his emails. She hired her own private investigator. Good, I said. Let them destroy each other. And they did. 2 weeks before our court date, Vanessa discovered evidence of Marcus's ongoing affairs. Jessica had anonymously sent her photographs of Marcus with another woman at a hotel. The photos were perfectly timed, perfectly angled, professionally shot to look like amateur snapshots. Perfectly damning. The fight was spectacular. Jessica had managed to place a recording device in Marcus's home office as part of her investigation, so I heard every word. Vanessa screamed, her voice shrill with rage. How many others are there? How many women have you been using while telling me I'm the only one? Marcus tried to calm her down, his voice smooth and manipulative. Baby, you're the only one who matters. These others, they're nothing. Just business contacts who misunderstood professional friendships. You know how women can be. Business contacts don't send you texts saying, last night was amazing with eggplant emojis. Vanessa shot back. I could hear things being thrown. Glass breaking. Business contacts don't have hotel key cards in their purses with your name on the reservation. Their relationship crumbled spectacularly. But the best part? In their anger, they started blaming each other for everything. Every problem, every lie, every failure. Vanessa accused Marcus of using her to get close to her family's business connections. You never loved me. You loved the fact that my father owns 3 dealerships and my brother is a commercial real estate developer. You were using me for contacts. Marcus accused Vanessa of being a gold digger. You're only with me because you think I'm about to come into money from the divorce. You're just like every other woman, looking for a meal ticket. If you're so successful, why are creditors calling every single day? Vanessa demanded. Why are you behind on the mortgage for a house that isn't even yours yet? Why is your business partner talking about dissolving the company? Because I'm investing in our future, Marcus yelled back. Once the divorce is final, once I get Claire's retirement money and her half of the house, everything will be fine. We'll be set. Just a few more weeks. Jessica played me the recording. He just confessed to marrying you for financial gain and to planning to exploit the divorce for money, she said. And this is just one of several incriminating conversations we've captured. He's handed us everything we need. The day of the court hearing arrived. I dressed carefully in a simple navy suit I'd bought years ago. Not too expensive, nothing that would raise questions. But not shabby either. I wanted to look dignified, strong, like a woman who had been through hell but was still standing. I met Amanda outside the courthouse. She looked at me approvingly. Perfect. You look exactly right. Remember, stay calm no matter what he says. Don't react. Don't engage. Let me do all the talking. Marcus arrived with his lawyer, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit who looked bored. Like this was just another routine divorce case. Marcus wore his best suit, the one I'd bought him for his business school graduation ceremony. He'd paired it with a new tie, probably Vanessa's choice. He saw me and actually winked. Like this was all a game he'd already won. We entered the courtroom. Judge Patricia Morrison was already at her bench, reviewing documents. She had a reputation for being fair but fierce. She didn't tolerate lies or manipulation in her courtroom. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Morrison looked up, her eyes scanning both parties. This is the matter of Thompson versus Thompson, dissolution of marriage. Are both parties present? Yes, Your Honor, both lawyers replied. Then let's proceed. Marcus's lawyer went first. He painted a picture of me as a vindictive woman trying to take advantage of her successful husband's generosity. Your Honor, my client built a thriving business while supporting his wife emotionally and financially throughout their marriage. Now, in the dissolution of their marriage, he simply asks for what's fair. The marital home, which he needs for business purposes. A portion of shared assets accumulated during the marriage. And modest temporary support while he rebuilds his life after this devastating betrayal of trust. Betrayal. He was claiming I'd betrayed Marcus. The audacity was stunning. Then it was Amanda's turn. She stood slowly, deliberately, every movement calculated for maximum impact. Your Honor, she began, her voice clear and strong. This case is indeed about betrayal, but not the kind Mr. Thompson's attorney would have you believe. Over the next hour, I will present evidence of systematic infidelity, financial fraud, emotional abuse, and criminal activity that paints a very different picture of this marriage and of Mr. Thompson's character. She was methodical, surgical. She started with the affairs, presenting photographs time-stamped and dated. Marcus with one woman at a hotel in January, a different woman at a restaurant in March, Vanessa in April, another woman in June. Each photo was clear, undeniable, devastating. Your Honor, these are just a selection from over 200 documented instances of infidelity spanning the last 3 years of the marriage, Amanda said. My client was working double shifts to support the household while Mr. Thompson was engaging in multiple affairs, charging hotel rooms and expensive dinners to joint credit cards. She pulled up hotel receipts on the courtroom screen. Each one showed charges to the credit card in both our names. The card I'd thought we only used for emergencies. $14,000 in hotel charges over 18 months, Amanda continued. All while Mr. Thompson claimed they couldn't afford for Mrs. Thompson to pursue her master's degree because money was tight. I watched Marcus's face. The confident smirk was fading, replaced by something closer to panic. Amanda moved to financial fraud next. She presented bank statements showing the illegal second mortgage Marcus had taken on our house. Your Honor, this loan was secured against the marital home without Mrs. Thompson's knowledge or consent. The signature on this document claiming to be hers is a forgery. We have a handwriting analysis from a certified expert confirming this. The expert's report appeared on the screen. Detailed analysis showing that while someone had tried to copy my signature, the stroke patterns and pressure points were all wrong. It was clearly Marcus's handwriting attempting to imitate mine. "This is textbook mortgage fraud, Your Honor. A criminal offense." Marcus's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client denies any wrongdoing. This is clearly a misunderstanding about paperwork that—" "Sit down, counselor," Judge Morrison said sharply. "I'll hear your defense when Mrs. Thompson's attorney is finished." Amanda continued, presenting evidence of Marcus's embezzlement from his own company. She called Jessica Wu to the stand first. Jessica testified calmly and professionally. "I was hired to investigate Mr. Thompson's activities. Over the course of 18 months, I documented systematic theft from his business. He was creating false invoices for services never rendered, pocketing the money, and altering the company books to hide the theft." She presented spreadsheets, bank records, false invoices. The evidence was overwhelming. Then Amanda called Tom Richards, Marcus's business partner, via video conference. Tom appeared on the screen, and I could see the anger in his eyes. "Mr. Richards, can you tell the court about your business relationship with Mr. Thompson?" "We started the company together 5 years ago," Tom said. 50-50 partners. I handled operations and client relations. Marcus handled finances and administration. I trusted him completely." "And when did you discover the embezzlement?" 2 months ago. I started noticing discrepancies in our accounts. Revenue that should have been there wasn't. When I dug deeper, I found that Marcus had been stealing from the company for at least 2 years. Maybe longer. "How much?" $75,000 that I can prove. Probably more that's been hidden too well for me to find. "What action have you taken?" "I filed a police report. I'm also dissolving the partnership and suing for damages. Marcus Thompson destroyed our business and my livelihood with his theft and lies." Marcus was pale now, gripping the table edge. His lawyer was frantically whispering to him, but Marcus seemed unable to respond. Amanda wasn't finished. She pulled up text messages next. Messages from Marcus to his friends, shown large on the courtroom screen for everyone to read. "Check out how much this idiot wife of mine has in her retirement account. $87,000. Half of that is mine when we divorce. Easy money. Claire is so pathetic. She actually believes I'm working late. I'm with Vanessa at the Hilton and the stupid woman has no clue. Can't wait to take everything from her in the divorce. She deserves it for being so boring and useless all these years." Each message was a knife wound. But I kept my face neutral, just as Amanda had instructed. "Don't react. Don't give him the satisfaction." The courtroom was silent. Even Marcus's lawyer looked uncomfortable now. "Your Honor," Amanda said, "these messages show Mr. Thompson's true character and his intentions regarding this divorce. He has systematically used, betrayed, and planned to financially destroy my client. He views her not as a partner he once loved, but as a resource to be exploited." She presented more evidence. Emails between Marcus and Vanessa discussing their plans to move into Claire's house once the divorce was final. Messages where Marcus coached Vanessa on what to say if anyone asked about their relationship. "Just say we connected after my separation. No one needs to know we've been together for 2 years. 2 years. He'd been planning this for 2 years. Amanda showed records of Marcus quitting his stable job to start his business, a decision he'd made unilaterally without discussing it with me. Mr. Thompson left a $60,000 a year position to pursue a business venture that he funded by stealing from the marital assets and taking illegal loans. My client had no say in this decision that dramatically affected their financial stability." Finally, Amanda presented character witnesses. Marcus's own mother appeared via video call. She looked tired and sad. "Mrs. Thompson, can you describe your son's pattern of relationships?" Marcus's mother sighed. "Marcus has always been charming but manipulative. He's been this way since he was young. He had 3 serious girlfriends before Claire. Each one supported him financially while he pursued various schemes. Each one he left when someone better came along or when they stopped being useful to him. Did you warn Claire about this pattern?" "I tried to. At their engagement party, I pulled her aside and told her to be careful, that Marcus had a history of using people. She thought I was just being an overprotective mother. I wish she'd listened. The testimony continued. Former girlfriends who Marcus had used and discarded. Colleagues who'd witnessed his unethical behavior. The picture was clear. Marcus Thompson was a con artist who saw relationships as transactions and people as resources. Then it was time for Marcus's defense. His lawyer called him to the stand, though I could see the reluctance in the lawyer's body language. This was a bad idea, and he knew it. Marcus took the oath and sat down, trying to look confident but failing. His hands were shaking. "Mr. Thompson," his lawyer began, "can you explain your side of this situation?" Marcus cleared his throat. "Your Honor, I know this looks bad. I made mistakes. I had affairs, yes. But you have to understand the pressure I was under. Building a business is incredibly stressful. I felt abandoned by Claire. She was always working or visiting her sick father. I felt alone in the marriage. So you responded by having multiple affairs and stealing from your wife and business partner?" Judge Morrison's voice was ice cold. It wasn't like that. The business needed capital. I was going to pay everything back. And the affairs were mistakes. I was weak. But Claire was never really there for me emotionally. She was so focused on her art museum job and her dying father that she neglected our marriage. I watched the judge's face harden. Blaming me for his affairs while my father was dying? That was a strategic mistake. Amanda stood for cross-examination. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. "Mr. Thompson, who paid for your MBA?" Marcus hesitated. "We both contributed to household expenses during that time." "That's not what I asked. Who paid your tuition? Who paid for your books, your transportation, your living expenses while you were in school?" "Claire worked while I was in school. But, yes or no, Mr. Thompson, did your wife work full-time and overtime to put you through business school?" "Yes." "How many hours per week did she work?" "I don't know exactly. Your wife's employment records show she worked an average of 63 hours per week during the 2 years you were in school. She worked double shifts, overnight shifts, weekends. Is that correct?" "I suppose, but..." "Yes or no, Mr. Thompson?" "Yes." "And during that time, did you work?" "I was a full-time student. That was my job." "So your wife worked 63 hours per week to support you while you pursued your education. And how did you repay her sacrifice?" Marcus didn't answer. "Let me help you remember. You had your first affair with a classmate 3 months before graduation, didn't you?" Marcus's face went red. "That was a misunderstanding. We have emails, Mr. Thompson. Very explicit emails. There's no misunderstanding." Amanda pulled up the emails on the screen. I looked away. I didn't need to read them again. "Mr. Thompson, you claim your business is successful. Can you explain why you currently owe over $400,000 to various creditors? Every business has debt. That's normal operating procedure. Is embezzling from your business partner normal operating procedure?" "I didn't embezzle. Those were legitimate business expenses. Your business partner just testified under oath that you stole $75,000. Are you calling him a liar? He doesn't understand the complexity of business finance. You have an MBA, Mr. Thompson. Surely you understand that creating false invoices and pocketing the money is theft, not complex finance." Marcus was sweating now. "I was planning to return the money." "When?" "After you divorced your wife and took her retirement savings." "That's not..." "I never..." "You sent text messages explicitly stating your plan to take your wife's retirement money. We've shown those messages to the court. Are you now claiming you didn't send them?" Marcus looked at his lawyer desperately, but there was nothing the lawyer could do. "Mr. Thompson, is it true that you took out a second mortgage on the marital home without your wife's knowledge?" "I needed capital for the business." "Yes or no? Did you forge your wife's signature on loan documents?" The pause was damning. "I may have signed some paperwork on her behalf." "That's mortgage fraud, Mr. Thompson. A federal crime." Amanda continued the cross-examination for another 15 minutes. By the end, Marcus looked like a man who'd been thoroughly beaten. Every lie exposed. Every manipulation revealed. Every crime documented and proven. No further questions, Your Honor, Amanda said, returning to her seat. Judge Morrison looked at Marcus with undisguised disgust. Mr. Thompson, you may step down. Marcus returned to his seat, his expensive suit now seeming like a costume. The successful businessman persona had been completely stripped away, revealing the con artist underneath. Does the defense have any other witnesses? Judge Morrison asked. Marcus's lawyer shook his head. No, Your Honor. We rest our case. What case? There was no case left. Amanda had destroyed every argument, every claim, every defense. Judge Morrison shuffled through her papers, reviewing the evidence. The courtroom was silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. Each second felt like an hour. Then the judge reached for the sealed envelope, the one that had been sitting on her desk throughout the entire proceeding. Before I make my ruling, she said, her voice cutting through the tense silence, there's one more matter to address. Mrs. Thompson, I have here a document from your father's estate. It was delivered to my chambers yesterday with very specific instructions. Marcus actually perked up at this. I could see him thinking that maybe, just maybe, there was something in that envelope that would save him. Maybe Claire's father had left her some debt that he could exploit. Maybe there was something he could still claim. Judge Morrison opened the envelope carefully. She pulled out several pages and began reading silently. Her eyebrows rose slightly. She read for what felt like an eternity, occasionally glancing up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. The courtroom was completely silent. Even the court reporter seemed to be holding her breath. Finally, Judge Morrison looked up. First at me, her expression softening slightly. Then at Marcus, her face hardening again into professional neutrality. Mrs. Thompson, she said, her voice measured and clear. According to this document, you are the sole beneficiary of your father's estate. She paused, and in that pause, I felt my entire life shift. The estate is valued at $34 million. The courtroom exploded. Marcus shot to his feet so fast his chair clattered backward and hit the floor with a crash that echoed through the room. What? That's impossible. Her father was a fucking mailman. Mr. Thompson, you will control yourself in my courtroom or I will have you removed, Judge Morrison said sharply. Bailiff, please help Mr. Thompson remain seated. The bailiff moved toward Marcus, who was hyperventilating, his face cycling between red and white. From the back of the courtroom, I heard Vanessa gasp. She stood up, staring at Marcus with an expression of horror and realization. She'd been played too. She thought she was getting a successful businessman. Instead, she'd gotten a con artist who'd just lost everything. Judge Morrison continued, her voice calm despite the chaos. The estate includes multiple real estate holdings valued at over $15 million, a stock portfolio worth approximately $9 million, and an art collection valued at $12 million. The deceased, Robert Martinez, accumulated this wealth over 30 years through careful investment and collecting. She picked up another page from the envelope. Furthermore, there's a letter from the deceased explaining his reasoning. I'll read the relevant portion. I intentionally concealed my wealth to test the character of my daughter's spouse. I wanted Claire to marry for love, not money. Over the years of their marriage, I documented Mr. Thompson's true nature through private investigation. I wanted my daughter to see who he really was without the influence of wealth. This inheritance is conditioned on Claire completing her divorce proceedings without revealing the money until the final hearing, ensuring that Mr. Thompson's actions in court reflect his true character, not his greed. Judge Morrison set down the letter and looked directly at Marcus. Mr. Thompson, it appears that while you thought you were divorcing a woman with modest means, you were actually divorcing an heiress to a significant fortune. Your behavior throughout these proceedings has been documented exactly as the deceased intended. Marcus was staring at me now, his face a mask of shock, horror, and desperate rage. You knew, he whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. You knew this whole time. I met his eyes for the first time since the hearing began. No, I said calmly, my voice steady and clear. I found out after you threw me away like garbage. But my father knew. He saw exactly who you were, Marcus. He watched you use me, betray me, plan to destroy me financially. And he made sure I would have every advantage when the time came to face you in court. This isn't fair, Marcus shouted. She was hiding assets. She committed fraud. Actually, Mr. Thompson, Judge Morrison said coldly, Mrs. Thompson inherited these assets after your separation and has committed no fraud. The estate was properly probated, and the inheritance is entirely legal and legitimate. You, on the other hand, have committed multiple acts of fraud throughout your marriage and these proceedings. She picked up her gavel, but before she could bring it down, she spoke again. I have presided over divorce cases for 23 years. I have seen people at their worst, fighting over money and property with no regard for dignity or truth. But rarely have I seen such a clear pattern of calculated abuse, manipulation, and exploitation as I've seen in your treatment of your wife, Mr. Thompson. Her voice was hard as steel. You systematically used your wife's financial support to build a career. You betrayed her repeatedly with multiple affairs. You stole from her, forged her signature, committed crimes in her name. You planned to take the last of her modest savings and leave her with nothing. And you had the audacity to come into my courtroom and ask for alimony from her. Judge Morrison shuffled her papers into a neat stack. I am making the following rulings. This marriage is hereby dissolved. Mrs. Thompson receives full ownership of all marital assets, including the home currently in foreclosure due to Mr. Thompson's illegal and fraudulent second mortgage. Your Honor, please. Marcus's lawyer tried to interject. I'm not finished, counselor. Mr. Thompson will receive exactly what he deserves from this marriage. Nothing. Zero. Not the house, not the car, not 1 penny of Mrs. Thompson's retirement fund or inheritance. Furthermore, Mr. Thompson will pay Mrs. Thompson's legal fees in the amount of $85,000. Marcus made a choking sound. I am also recommending that the district attorney's office investigate the numerous criminal activities revealed in this hearing, including mortgage fraud, embezzlement, and forgery. Additionally, I am granting Mrs. Thompson a 5-year restraining order. Mr. Thompson is to have no contact with Mrs. Thompson, directly or indirectly. He may not call, text, email, or approach her in any way. If he violates this order, he will be immediately arrested and held in contempt of this court. Judge Morrison looked directly at Marcus one final time. Mr. Thompson, you came into this courtroom expecting to financially destroy a woman you had already emotionally destroyed. Instead, you've exposed yourself as a criminal and a fraud. You will leave this marriage exactly as you deserve, with nothing but the consequences of your own actions. The gavel came down with a sharp crack that sounded like the end of one life and the beginning of another. This court is adjourned. For a moment, nobody moved. Then chaos erupted. Marcus's lawyer was gathering papers frantically. Vanessa had fled from the courtroom. Marcus himself sat frozen, staring at nothing. His entire world collapsed around him. I stood slowly, collected my bag, and walked toward the exit. As I passed Marcus's table, he reached out as if to grab my arm, but the bailiff stepped between us immediately. Claire, wait, Marcus said, his voice breaking. We can talk about this. We can work something out. Please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant. I stopped and looked at him. Really looked at him. This man I'd loved for 8 years. This man I'd sacrificed for, supported, believed in. I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Nothing but a distant pity for someone who'd destroyed his own life through greed and stupidity. Goodbye, Marcus, I said simply. Then I walked out of the courtroom into the bright afternoon sunlight. Amanda joined me on the courthouse steps. How do you feel? I took a deep breath, feeling the sun warm on my face. Free. For the first time in years, I feel completely free. Your father would be proud. I know, I said, and I felt tears starting to form. Good tears this time. I finally understand what he was trying to teach me, that my worth was never tied to Marcus or anyone else. Came from within, from my strength, my character, my ability to survive and thrive even when everything seemed lost. Amanda squeezed my shoulder. So what's next for Claire Thompson? I smiled. Actually, I'm going back to my maiden name, Claire Martinez. And I'm going to use this gift my father left me to make sure other women don't have to go through what I did. 6 months later, I stood in a beautiful gallery space in the heart of downtown. The walls were hung with pieces from my father's art collection, now on public display for the first time. A plaque near the entrance read, "The Robert and Elena Martinez Foundation for Women's Independence. My mother's name and my father's, together again." The foundation had helped 60 women leave abusive or exploitative marriages in just 6 months. We provided legal support, financial counseling, housing assistance, and job training. We gave them what my father had given me, the resources and support to rebuild their lives with dignity. The marital home that Marcus had fought so hard for, I'd bought it at auction for a fraction of its value when the bank foreclosed. Then I donated it to a women's shelter, where it now housed 6 women and their children as they transitioned to independence. Marcus himself was serving 3 to 5 years for fraud and embezzlement. I'd heard through Jessica Wu that he'd tried selling his story to tabloids, casting himself as the victim of a scheming wife who'd hidden her wealth. No one had bought it. The court transcripts were public record. Everyone could see exactly what had happened and who he really was. Vanessa had posted a long Instagram story about knowing your worth and escaping toxic men before deleting all her social media and apparently moving to another state. I hoped she'd learned something from the experience. As for me, I was thriving. I'd been promoted to senior curator at the museum. I started dating again, taking my time, learning to trust my instincts. I'd reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during my marriage. I'd even started painting again, something I'd loved as a teenager, but had abandoned when Marcus called it a waste of time. I stood in the gallery that evening, surrounded by my father's art collection and the people whose lives had been changed by his gift. A young woman approached me, someone the foundation had helped 3 months earlier. "Ms. Martinez," she said, her eyes bright with tears. "I just wanted to thank you. 6 months ago I had nothing. My ex-husband had convinced me I was worthless, that I'd never survive on my own. But because of your foundation, I have my own apartment now. I have a job. My kids are safe and happy. You gave me my life back." I hugged her, feeling my own tears start to fall. "My father gave it to you, and to me. He taught me that real wealth isn't money. It's knowing who you are and having the courage to stand in that knowledge." That night, I visited my father's grave. I'd had a new headstone installed, one that reflected who he really was, Robert Martinez, devoted father, wise investor, and champion of his daughter's strength. I placed fresh flowers on the grave and sat on the bench nearby, looking up at the stars. "You were right, Dad," I said softly. "About everything." Marcus showed his true colors. "I found my strength, and I'm using this gift you left me to help others the way you helped me." The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, I could almost hear my father's voice. "I'm proud of you, Claire. I always knew you were stronger than you believed." Marcus had mocked me as he signed those divorce papers, certain he was taking everything from a woman who had nothing. He'd sneered at my father's memory, dismissing him as just a mailman who couldn't possibly matter. He didn't realize he was losing a queen. He didn't realize that the broke woman he was discarding was actually an heiress. He didn't realize that the father he'd dismissed had been 10 steps ahead of him the entire time. And that mistake, that fundamental underestimation of me and my father, cost him absolutely everything. I stood up from the bench, brushed off my coat, and walked back to my car. A beautiful car I'd bought myself, with my own money, from my own inheritance. I was Claire Martinez, daughter of Robert Martinez, survivor, philanthropist, free woman, and I was just getting started.